Hello, Brooks.
Hello, Yitka. How are you?
I'm very well. I hope you are well too.
Yes, getting better every day.
Yeah, it's getting late also where you are.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm a late night person.
Yeah, it's great. And we are going to talk about your Hollow Earth expedition that you were planning, but I have questions about your book, the latest book that we were talking about the previous time. I don't know if you have it that you could show it again.
Yep, I do. It's called Charm of Favor. It is available on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And I had a reader today tell me they ordered it this week from Amazon UK, and they already got it. So Amazon UK is delivering very quickly over there.
Oh, it's great. And the book is about the Clinton crime syndicate.
Yes, the book is a true story of the rise of the Clinton crime syndicate. Now, that's the name that I give it, but this syndicate goes back hundreds of years, and it has been built uh, with the express purpose of removing America from the earth, because this is really the only place that liberty and freedom is fully defended. Once those rights are removed from the earth, they will never be restored. And that's what the globalist elites want. That's the way they had the world for 5,000 years, and they want it back.
Yeah, and we were talking about last previous time we were talking about the Hawaii nuke alarm, and we were talking about uh, the Haiti scandal and assassinations, and also that Bill Clinton was actually maybe not only groomed, but maybe he was already born with
He
the
was planned for. He was planned for.
yeah.
And when he arrived here in mortal form as the illegitimate son of his mother, that would not do for someone who was destined to be president of the United States. So they crafted for him a genealogy by marrying his mother to a dead man who was laying in the morgue, whose name was William Jefferson Blythe, who had returned from Italy as a war hero in 1945. Bill Clinton was born in 1946. This man died about 3 weeks before Bill Clinton was born. So when they married the two together and then Bill Clinton was born, they said he was 3 months premature. But I got the story from the midwife that actually delivered. His name was Tyrell at the time. He was a full 8 pound plus baby. So he was a full term baby. He was not born 3 months premature. So that would have made Bill Clinton, or that would have made Bill Clinton's mother married to a dead man, and then she gave birth to, or she was pregnant 3 months before William Jefferson Blythe even came back from Italy. So this is how the craft is done, because for these dark uh, leaders, these globalist elites, genealogy is very important. If you go back to all the ancient records, the Kabbalah, the Sefer Yetzirah, the Old Testament, genealogy is very, very important for leadership.
Yeah, and I
So
can,
this is why it was done.
yeah, there is a video on YouTube now about that Prime Minister of Canada might be son of dictator, Cuban dictator. Have you seen it? Fidel Castro.
I saw the likeness. Wow, they look almost exactly like one another.
Yeah, and also that the mother and or wife also of Bush's, the George Bush mother, Barbara Bush, was a daughter, biological daughter of Aleister Crowley, the Satanist.
Wow. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable how the genealogy all stems back to King John, who was one of the most violent leaders we had in Europe. In fact, my ancestors are Scottish on the Western Isles of Scotland, fought against King John and fought him to a standstill in the year 1215 and got him to sign the Magna Carta, which was kind of a beginning document toward the Declaration of Independence, which the founding fathers of the United States got King George to surrender to. It wasn't an easy thing to do, and they have been trying to destroy America ever since. And this is what the book is about, this Charm of Favor book. And they don't give up easily. In the book, Bill Clinton has a conversation with a character that I create whose name is Lim Shun. And Lim Shun is an agent of this dark force. I don't even give it a name because I really don't know its name. Could be Illuminati, I don't know, but I call it the Voice. So Lim Shun has a conversation with the Voice, and then Lim Shun has a conversation with Bill Clinton, and they ask one another, so how are you going to get America to give up? Because so many people in America have guns. You know, it's not like we're fighting the army. We'd be fighting 150 million Americans who are armed. And he said, well, we have to get, Americans to give up their guns. And Lim Shun said, there's no way you're going to do that. They've been armed since the year 1675. And Bill Clinton said, well, we will have a series of mass shootings. That's the way it's been done for thousands of years. That's the way it was done in Europe. That's the way it was done in Australia. And that's the way it will work in the United States. And since the last time I spoke to you, just 2 days ago, we've had another mass shooting, and the sun did not move 1 inch in the sky before the politicians were calling for the removal of guns.
Yeah.
And that's where it sits today. They want us to give up our guns, and they're vocal about it, and they want us to make laws to make that happen. And it's, everyone knows, including the Czech Republic, if you give up your guns, you're finished. The leaders will come in and take you over, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, and I live usually in Sweden, but since 2 years I've lived in Czech Republic. I was almost forced here. So within 1 week ago, they have done some regulation here in Czech Republic. Also, or some law is changed for gun control, gun regulation. And yesterday I saw Attorney General Session, isn't he?
Jeff Sessions.
Yes, he was for gun control. Oh, how about to accuse people for 9/11 false flag, to start with that instead? And it was an obvious false flag in Florida, absolutely obvious false flag.
There are many inconsistencies. In fact, in the last 30 minutes, just in the last 30 minutes while you were sleeping, there have been 2 interviews come up on the internet of high school kids that were at that high school in that shooting. And both of these kids said on camera there were 2 shooters. There were 2 shooters, not just one. And in photographs, that there are still shots that are taken from the film that was taken the day of the arrests, 2 days ago, or yesterday. One of the shooters is wearing a white shirt, one is wearing a red shirt, and another one is wearing a blue shirt. 3 different individuals, 3 different body builds, generally the same skin color, generally the same hair color, but 3 different individuals, unless this guy changed clothes twice while he was being arrested.
Yeah, I don't know if you know Ole Dammegård, but I would like to put you together. He has worked, he's also from Sweden, he's Danish-Swedish, and he has been forced to Spain because he he knew about false flag assassination of the Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme. So they told him, either you shut up, or like you leave the country. So they moved very quickly to Spain, where he has lived now for 17 years or 18 years. But he has been investigating false flag operation for 30 years. And so it would be great if you two could talk to that together. He has, it's lightonconspiracies.com, and his YouTube channel is Ulle Dammegard. But it would be great. So maybe soon you could do some.
I'd like to. I mean, it's interesting to hear about the conspiracies, but it's much better to hear about the facts
Yeah.
and the witnesses, and then you can begin to put the pieces together and identify the real guilty parties.
Yeah. I would like to ask you about three things from the book. It's Benghazi, then the murder of Settrich, and also somebody has commented that when we talked about the assassination of Tom Clancy, that also Michael Hastings and Andrew Breitbart were murdered, absolutely, for sure. But you have in your book also the assassination of Michael Hastings, isn't it so?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, one of the things that the book does is I very carefully spend time putting these events in sequential order, because you hear about them in the news and they get out of order and you get confused because they they want to keep you confused. But when you go back to Benghazi, and when this occurred, I have to kind of go back to 2011 when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, and she sent in American air power to disrupt the Libyan army, which was defending itself against outside invaders of what became ISIS. They were Al Qaeda, they were Taliban, they were hired assassins. And the Libyan army was defending itself against those individuals. And Hillary Clinton sent in the American Air Force and allied forces and beat back the Libyan army. And they were able to get Mord-Gaddafi to come out, chased him into the streets, and assassinated him. So Libya fell apart. Their leadership was gone. Their Libyan heritage was gone. All the Libyan people that loved their government and were taken care of by their government, educated by their government, housed by their government, because the country was rich, all that was gone. So what happened was all the rockets, missiles, and grenades that existed in Libya became very valuable contraband. And so the United States moved the CIA into Benghazi to try to make sure that these weapons got brokered from Libya through Turkey to Syria. And when Ambassador Stevens was in Tripoli, he had to leave because of violence, but then he went back to Tripoli. He made the trip from Tripoli to Benghazi. He arrived in Benghazi and met up with the two individuals. They were both SEAL team veterans. They were private contractors. And they explained to him that they had made 600 requests to Hillary Clinton's State Department for reinforcements for the compound, the embassy there in Benghazi. None of those requests were answered, they were not given any kind of support whatsoever. The Pentagon was largely unaware that the CIA had an annex 2 miles away. They didn't know this. That's one of the reasons why there was the big confusion, why the CIA could not come and help the embassy, is because the Pentagon wasn't supposed to know that they were there. So what I wanted to do with the reader is put the reader on the ground when Ambassador Chris Stevens arrived at Benghazi. What were the conversations? What was the feeling of the room? What was the tension that was going on? How did they know things were going from bad to worse? And late in the day, they get an emergency visit. The Turkish consul flies into Benghazi, takes a Land Rover or whatever from the airstrip to the Benghazi embassy and hastily meets with Chris Stevens. And we don't really know exactly what was said, so I try to put the reader in that position, what would have been said. So the Turkish consul could have said, look, you are in real danger here, okay? They're going to come and destroy this place because the Americans are moving weapons from Libya to Syria to unseat Bashar al-Assad. And that's not what the forces want to have happen. Those forces are sending people here to stop that from happening. And you're in harm's way. And the consulate even said, if I had room on my plane, I would fly you out of here. But I don't have room, and we have to go right now. And then you see the conditions begin to deteriorate. Then I actually take the factual news report and stick it in the book so you can see the events happen, not from the annex side, which everybody got to see in the movie 13 Hours, but from the embassy side, what went on at the embassy. When you're done with this chapter, you will know what really happened in Benghazi. Now, Benghazi happened on September 11th, 2012. On my radio program on September 16th, 2012, 5 days later, I broke this story. I broke this story. I broke it to the world. I knew what was going on, and I told the world what was going on. Last week, Washington finally admitted I was right.
Mm. And do you know about that? You speak about Syria also because it's connected to, first they take Libya, then Syria. Former Minister of Foreign Affairs of France, Roland Dumas, he said, and you maybe know it, that he said 2 years before the problems in Syria has started, 2 years before, he was asked by a British and a French that they were planning something in Syria, if he would be interested to participate. It was 2 years before it started in Syria, and then 2 years later it started, so he understood that it was this problem that they were planning. And
Syria is a remarkable city. Damascus, country. Damascus is an amazing and ancient city. It's probably one of the oldest cities on the earth. It's one of the first big cities that's mentioned in the Old Testament, and it was old when it was described then. So it's been around for thousands and thousands of years. To make a prophecy, a prediction that Damascus would be completely destroyed would be like saying New York City, would be completely destroyed. Nobody could believe it. It was so huge and so powerful. And yet it lays in rubble today, completely destroyed. Those days that were spoken about anciently are happening right before our eyes. and this is the danger that we're in. These forces have been fighting one another for thousands of years. And the only thing standing in between those forces, the dark forces, winning is us, the free press, those of us that are willing to talk about these things and wake people up to the reality of what is going on around them. but people are so, wrapped up in their electronic devices, and they're all the time looking down, and they're thinking about their paycheck and their job and their health, and they're not willing to look outside of that world. But in the real world, these powerful brokers of humanity are hard at work.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Jordan Maxwell, but somebody said that he has met somebody who worked for the military or secret service, and then that they were planning, like, historically to do events, like false flag events, that it would match the history and the predictions, the prophecies. So
I'm sure. And we can go back in history. We only need to go back to the New Testament. Look at the life of Jesus Christ. When you look at his 3-year ministry, the things that he did, the timing that he did them, and the places that he did them, it's very clear that he was following a map. He was following something that had been laid out a long time before. That's on the good side. On the bad side, they're also working a map, working a timeline. And, these mass shootings don't happen by accident. And, you look at these young boys who are drugged or hypnotized to do what they do, and then after it's all done, they sort of wake up a little bit and they're kind of confused and they don't really understand what they just did, but everybody saw them do it, and then they end up going to jail for the rest of their lives, or taking their own lives out of their own insanity. But when you mention false flag, it sends the hair on the back of people's neck up, because what it implies is that somebody in law enforcement, somebody in government, somebody in this syndicate is making these things happen. They're making the events happen. Like, I looked at the Boston a marathon bombing. I looked at probably 1,200, 1,300 pictures that were taken from different buildings, all the different cameras. And I saw the boys with the backpacks, but their backpacks were a different color than the backpack that was left on the ground. So I started looking around through all the pictures, whose backpack matches the one that's on the ground. I found the backpack. I found the guy carrying the backpack, but he had khaki pants on, yeah, and khaki boots and closely cut hair and a black shirt on. And it's funny because before the bombing, he has a backpack on. After the bombing, when everybody's running around, he doesn't have a backpack. Same man. So I sent these pictures out everywhere, red arrows. Who is this guy? No one answered. No one answered. Nobody cared. They already had the guys that they wanted.
Yeah. Was it Kraft International, maybe, the guy you had seen?
I don't know. I never did get his name, but he definitely looked paramilitary to me.
Yeah, I mean the company Kraft International.
Ah.
Yeah. You know what? When they did the false flag in Boston, the marathon, they were not planning to use the two Tsarnaev brothers. They were planning to use it to another false flag, which was 4th of July 2013, which was prevented. So it's why it's so badly photoshopped that the younger brother is without legs, and it's so badly photoshopped because they didn't know when they did it that they will use them. And one is murdered. I don't know if you have seen the pictures of the older brothers.
Sure.
Naked.
It was funny because he doesn't have a shirt on, and he's arm in arm with two policemen who are in full body armor, helmets, jackets, shin pads, elbow pads. He's not going anywhere. The next thing we hear, a car comes out of nowhere, supposedly driven by the other brother, and runs them over. But the police somehow disappear, and only the brother is run over by the car. It makes no sense to me. Their story just does not make any sense to me.
And
The wounds that he suffered were horrible.
yeah, and his aunt said that when she saw the video with the naked man walking, the Tsarnaev older brother, she said,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, it's obviously my nephew." She recognized him, and they
Mm-hmm.
murdered him, of course, and almost murdered the younger brother, and he's now in jail.
Mm-hmm.
So just to keep him shut up. So yeah, that false flag is well visible because, as I told you, they were not planned to be the perpetrators, so-called.
There are a lot of victims along the way. One of the other victims that I talk about in the book is a bright young man who was loved by everyone, whose name was Seth Rich. Now, Seth is in his early 20s. He's single. He has a girlfriend. He has friends at Luz City Bar, which is where I introduce you to Seth Rich, the sort of human side of Seth Rich. And he voices his fear that Hillary Clinton has taken over the Democratic Party, and she has paid off all of the superdelegates so that his candidate, the person he was campaigning for, whose name was Bernie Sanders, had no chance of ever winning the primary. And he was angry about that. And the more he drank at Luz City Bar, the more he talked about it. And when the bar got ready to close, Seth Rich left on foot. He didn't live far away from the bar, and he didn't make it very far. And someone walked up behind him and shot him twice, and he died either on the way to the hospital or at the hospital. There are varying stories about exactly what happened to him. I don't really trust the sources. What I do know is that he was shot twice in the back, and that's the crime. Somebody followed him out of that bar, and somebody shot him twice in the back and killed this young man for what he did, which we believe he was one of the sources that was leaking information about the DNC to WikiLeaks. And WikiLeaks, as they are probably the greatest reporters in the world, they only report the truth, and they validate everything, where it came from, where it went to, before they publish it. They've never published anything false, but they certainly publish a lot of incriminating information. And now we have learned that Donna Brazil was the individual who made the phone call to the police department and to the parents and got them to get the private investigator to drop the case. That I really thought it was Debbie Wasserman Schultz for the longest time, but it was actually Donna Brazil. That makes this even worse. And then there was another individual whose name was Michael Hastings. I'm sure you know who he is.
Yeah.
He was an investigative reporter, a freelance reporter. He was working on a story with, he had actually done a story and incriminated an active general in the United States military, and was responsible for him being removed from office and prosecuted because of the information that he shared. He was on a similar case, and he had just met with friends and said, I think I'm being followed by the FBI. I've got to lay low for a while. So he left in his Mercedes-Benz, and a few minutes later, he was killed on San Vicente Boulevard. I know right where this is. I grew up in Santa Monica. One thing that people don't really know about these cars is that they can be hacked. That is to say, the throttle, the brakes, the windows, the steering can all be taken over from remote control. So that car was going 125 miles an hour down San Vicente Boulevard. It's not a terrifically curvy road, but it was clear that Michael Hastings could not stop this car. Step on the brake, nothing happened because the brakes are electric. He couldn't turn it off because it's a push button on the dash. You can't just turn the engine off when you're not in park. He couldn't shift to park because the shifter is electronic. And he couldn't roll the windows down. There was nothing he could do. The odd thing about this assassination is that the car seems to have exploded while it was on the road. The engine was actually way behind the car, and the car smashed into a tree, which they say is the cause of death. Kind of hard to survive a 100-mile-an-hour crash into a palm tree. But what would have caused the motor to blow out of the car unless this car was being followed by a drone? And maybe that's why he was trying to evade it. So maybe the drone or the helicopter, whatever was following him, was controlling his car, and then they shot him and killed him, just like they do in when they kill a Hamas leader over there. They do exactly the same thing. They blow the car up while it's driving.
Mm. Now, it's probably not in your book, but Paul Walker, the actor, Paul Walker, he was also murdered in a car. And
I don't have it in the book.
yeah, but it seems to be a drone also. He was it was on a way where it was 35 miles per, like very low velocity was allowed there, very low. And they have changed the sign to 45 from 35 before he was murdered. He was quite a well-known actor, Fast and Furious he has done.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, Paul Walker, right? The Ferrari that slammed sideways at 80 miles an hour. They were evidently doing donuts in a parking lot and lost control. That's what I heard.
Yeah, and they believe that he was working with help to, like, in catastrophe, and the WHO didn't like it, and it's like Jesuits controlled, and so United Nations, so that they killed him because he wanted to help people for real, and maybe found about genocide and things like that. So they got rid of him. Unfortunately, it's a lot of people.
Well, one of the things we know about this crime syndicate, one of the things we know about this crime syndicate is it's very evil, and because of its darkness, the operatives have to make a kind of oath, a kind of covenant, a promise to this dark side. And this is why they never get arrested. They never go to jail. No witnesses, live to testify against them. It's because they have made this covenant and they agree not to testify against somebody in this world organization. But that's beginning to change, because last week and the week before, we had an FBI informant. They didn't know he was an FBI informant. He was working with them, collecting information, making videotapes, making recordings, copying documents. He finally made it alive to testify before Congress. And these people, Hillary Clinton, Susan Rice, other individuals in the State Department, Ben Rhodes, John Brennan, Clapper, all of them, even Mueller, the guy that's running the investigation to investigate President Trump, all of them are implicated in this crime of the century. And I hope that they're prosecuted. Yeah. I hope this guy lives.
Yeah, I believe that the people who will prosecute them are not even law educated in the end, because who are the top judges in Supreme Court in your country or in this country or in Sweden, these people, either they are involved or they are incompetent to do this, to charge these people. So
I think it's more than a conspiracy. I think it is an organized plan to try to unseat a duly elected president. And it was only a matter of time before this corruption made it to this level. We're at that level. And the reason that I wrote this book, you know, it's a pretty thick book. And it isn't all doom and gloom. There's actually a happy ending in this book. But the reason I wrote the book is because, Yitka, we are in a very dangerous place because these dogs have been backed into a corner. And there's nothing more dangerous than a dog that's been backed into a corner. And this dog will bite very hard. And this dog has weapons of mass destruction, I believe, are inside this country right now. And they have no reservations about using those weapons against our own people if they think they can beat Donald Trump.
Yeah, and it's funny you say dogs, because they depict in the Illuminati coded language that I told you they use, they depict themselves sometimes as dog for real. Wow. Because, you know, from the Bible or from the history, Canaan, the land of Canaan, like Canaanites, that's why they depict themselves as dog. So if you see on MSN.com, which is a highly satanic Illuminati site,
I believe that.
If you see a dog with a little baby crawling like that, it's about pedophilia. It's not about cute build. It's the dog represent the Illuminati, these Canaanites, and
that's part of the covenant. Pedophilia and sodomy is part of the covenant that they make. It goes all the way back to Lucifer.
Yes, and one of the people I would like to mention now, Mark Passio, who was a priest in a satanic church, but then he has got this conscious awakening of his consciousness, and he is talking about that even if we wouldn't believe what these Illuminati they believe, it's important that we try to learn how they are functioning, how they are thinking, and what they are doing. And actually, Mark Passio was lured to Mexico to be on a conference. And I have seen a video a few days ago, I believe 9th of February, I have seen, and my hair was like this, because in this video, one of the main person who has organized this conference, Jeff Berwick, who many people suppose that he's a good man, he has lured Mark Passio there, and in this video, I can put a link there, in Illuminati coded language, he says that Mark Passio will be murdered there, and he says in Illuminati coded language the way he will be murdered, which is the most gross, awful, satanic ritual with drinking of blood and eating of human flesh. So, wow. So I have written to police yesterday, not that, and also false flag operation, because he says the word Daesh. I believe Daesh is used for Islamic State in the Middle Eastern countries. So that he says that they would accuse or say that Islamic State did it, but who is paying Islamic State? It's the bankers, Illuminati bankers,
Of course.
and Bank of International Settlements. It's there you have the perpetrators. So if it would happen anything to Mark Passio, I want him to come back to United States home,
and be safe.
Yes, be safe. Sorry, I speak now. But what I want to say also that when we talk about Libya, the Bank of Libya, what Gaddafi didn't want to have the Rothschild Central Bank in Libya, I guess it's there now, the Rothschild Bank. And also your president, there has been prepared assassination for him even the day before he got in power. They wanted to assassinate him and do a false flag in New York, Washington, there, New York, it was, I believe, because Barack Obama would stay in power. So, but they were not successful. But if your president is talking about to take pedophiles, why is he going to Davos? It's the epicenter of the power of they are the pedophiles, the main power that should be in prison, all of them. And
yeah, but the one thing about these globalist elites is they don't have much power by themselves. They need their structure. And the structure is what the American Department of Justice has very quietly been going after. First, they began in Hollywood. They got the cell phones, which had the phone lists on them. Then they went to Europe and picked up the people that were on their phones. Then they got the phones of the people in Europe, and they went up and up and up the scale. And now they're knocking on the back door of this power structure. And they don't have their armies anymore. Their armies are broken apart. Their armies are scared because the Department of Justice, the good guys, have been making arrests, thousands of them. I understand now the sealed indictments, the indictments that haven't even been issued yet because they're sealed, are up to over 8,000. And there's already been over 2,000 arrested. So that's a total of 10,000 soldiers that they're going to have in jail. And it's not going to be long. I think the one thing I really like about this president is he does not go to the news and say, this is what we're going to do first, and this is what we're going to do second, and this is what we're going to do third, and here's the dates we're going to do them. So everybody scatters because they've already told everybody what they're going to do. That's not what they do. They just show up and do it. And that's what's breaking them apart. And I think that's what's got them so mad. And this week, we would be talking about something completely different if the school in Florida had not been shot up. You can't turn any news channel on without it being covered 24 hours a day with the school shooting in Florida. This is not what we would be talking about this week. We'd be talking about the investigation of Susan Rice, of Samantha Power, of John Brennan, of Ben Rhodes, these individuals that lied. There are a dozen main players that are famous, a dozen of them that will be on trial and they will go to prison. Two of those names are Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. It is the case of the century because it's the crime of the century.
And you know whom Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Michelle Obama, and Barack Obama, and also Bill Gates and Melinda Gates have been meeting. The head of Illuminati, who has a death squad, he's the chief of Hollywood, he's the chief of music industry, of Secret Service in your country and our countries in EU countries, NATO, Church, the Satanic Vatican. Well, it's the head of Illuminati, Mr. Antichrist himself, William Van Down, born 20th of May 1963. And
Wow.
the Antichrist would be from the tribe of Dan, Van Down, you hear it. So this is the chief of Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, Melinda Gates, and Barack and Michelle Obama. He's the boss, and media and everything. So
Well, he's done a good job with his leadership, because all those individuals at one time were flat broke. And each one that you just named are billionaires today because of the leadership of that man.
Yes, so today they are billionaires, but it's not sure that they are billionaires of like 2 months from now, because the money should be, they should remain, take it back to the people. They have stolen it because they have been lying. So it's what.
Well, I think it's important that the world knows this. That's why I wrote the book. Everything in the book, except for my fictional characters, is true and factual. So the book is based on actual events, real names, because they're all guilty. I didn't change anyone's names. I just put my fictional characters in there next to them so you could meet them and experience the events as they happened.
Yeah, Brooks, we would be talking about Hollow Earth today also, but could we take it another time? Because this was so interesting and
It
it's
was.
getting late.
That's fine with me.
Okay, so we can decide later when we could talk about Hollow Earth and other things. And
Sure, we could do it Friday or Saturday.
it would be great. Okay, Brooks, I shall say good night because you are tired now.
Well, thank you very much. I've been up since before the sun came up this morning. It's been a long day, but you make it so easy to talk, and you're a great personality, and I know you have a great following there in the Czech Republic. So I appreciate your time, Jitka.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate your time. Bye bye, Brooks.
Bye bye.